Today we're going to talk about happiness, not the pursuit of happiness, but happiness without actually having to pursue. It sounds very ironic because the whole idea of happiness is to chase it like a butterfly, right? But the problem of chasing butterflies in a concrete jungle is the butterflies are usually imaginary. So we're going to talk about what happiness means at the end of the day, right? What it means to you may not necessarily be true for your sibling or even your close friend. There might be things that make both of you happy, like watching a Sylvester Stallone movie together. Whatever, I'm giving just some examples here. But the meaning, the semantics keep changing from people to people, right? And that's exactly what makes happiness, the very concept of happiness, so damn interesting, because there's no definite uh, methodology to it. There's no absolute, right? Like I can say that I love sweets, but there's no definite answer to that. Like maybe I love Mysore Pak and somebody else loves rasmalai or peda or whatever. Like the point is, it's very difficult to uh, you know box it and package it as one size fits all. It's never the case with happiness. Sadness, on the other day, is completely uh, uniform. It's like the most common denominator that you can find. Things that make me sad most probably will make you sad. The chances of you feeling grief, loss, sorrow, longing, foreboding, and all these intense feelings, chances are that they are the same for each one of us. But happiness, the way it functions, is pretty unique for all of us, and that's why the subject is so damn interesting. Think about it, like even when they sat down in USA and wrote down the Declaration of Independence, and when they went ahead with the whole pursuit of happiness, they explicitly mentioned that it's a pursuit, right? It's something you will keep chasing, but you most probably may not even get. But that's what it's supposed to be. They don't mention happiness. They mention happiness pursuit, and I think that explains everything, uh, which needs to be looked upon when we think about happiness. I've been thinking about this concept for a while now, uh, and uh, it grows on me that with the passage of time, like we keep evolving, maybe for good or bad. Uh, our dark circles get darker and darker, and hopefully our soul gets warmer. I don't know, but the idea is that we keep evolving, and as time passes, we realize that how we used to think about happiness once upon a time is not the same anymore. Like 10 years ago, what made me happy was just being there. Like I found myself a very low paying job, but very fulfilling one. And I used to spend a lot of time, like literally a lot of time, watching movies, meeting people from the industry. And my entire life, not just my job, my entire life was around cinema. Uh, in fact, even today, like I miss that smell the moment you enter PVR or all the places that I used to go for press screenings during my days. I miss that smell, that strange intermingling smell of popcorn and samosa. So those were my days, and I think about it, and it makes me realize that uh, this has nothing to do with the classic good old days nonsense. Like most of the time, the so-called good old days never exist. They just your mind playing games with you, right? Because you're constantly on a comparative mode. we're constantly comparing whether I'm doing good or bad, uh, whether I'm sleeping better or worse, whether I'm more focused or less, whether I'm as driven about life as I used to be, whether I'm aspirational, whether I really want to get through the day, or will I let the day get through me. So these are things that happen, right? But coming back to the topic of happiness and going back to my journalism days, uh, just just watching movies made me happy. I really didn't care uh, whether the movie was good or great. I just loved watching movies, and as a principle, I never left a movie incomplete back in those days. Now I don't follow that anymore, but back in the days, like even if the movie was rotten, I used to watch the entire movie. That's how dedicated I was to cinema, or should I say, my own pursuit of happiness. Uh, so now when I think about it, like when I left film journalism, entertainment journalism, I didn't realize that I was stepping into something which would be devoid of these kind of continuous uh, delight. Because when you do something which is not very transactional in nature, when you do something because you really love doing it, you don't care much about other things. Obviously, that's foolish. That's clearly foolish because you do that for a certain period of time in your early 20s, maybe in your mid 20s. But then reality hits you that, okay, I don't earn enough. I I don't make that much. So then it hits you, and then your whole equation about happiness uh, changes, right? And that is natural, especially when you live in a city like Bombay, right? It's very natural. Now that I live in a city like Bangalore and it's smaller, and you realize the quality of life is much better here. Like the whole purchasing power is also higher, and they seem to know that they need to live a little. They have to taste happiness. Whereas that wasn't the case in Bombay, where people seem to be working so hard that it seemed like they didn't care about happiness much, right? But then who am I to decide that how people find happiness? Maybe a person who slogs through the day 14 hours, and he climbs on to Virar fast, and he reaches home and he looks at his daughter watching television or something, and she looks back at him, and maybe that one glance of his daughter would mean the world to him, and that is happiness for him. And how am I supposed to say that is not happiness, right? So that is the thing about happiness, that it keeps mutating and metamorphosing into different things, and you can never put a finger on it and say that, okay, this is the chemical formula of happiness. You can't do that. Although you can study about endorphins, you can study about cortisols, you can study about all these chemicals that are literally bursting all the time in your brain, but uh, it's almost impossible to get a pulse of happiness. So when I compare that phase, more than a decade ago with where I am right now, I'm realizing that as of today, what makes me really happy is uh, creating quiz, like creating a deck of questionnaire and trying to be as cheeky, as witty as possible. Although I don't always do a great job, but some of the questions I am very proud of them. So compiling and composing these questions, putting up a quiz deck, is something which makes me happy. Uh, Hosting a quiz, be it online or offline, is something that makes me really happy. And then I realized that what is a common factor between uh, this happiness and the happiness that happened in the early 2010s. Then you realize that, okay, both are non-transaction. They have nothing to do with money, and maybe that is the linkage, that I'm not thinking about money. I'm not worrying that, okay, I spent so many weeks to come up with one deck of 55 questions, right? So maybe that is the conclusion here, that things that really make you happy are mostly non-transactional. They have very little to do with money. Obviously, if you have a certain amount of disposable income and you take your family to a nice place and have good food and talk, cherishable things without arguing, without getting into fight and all that family nonsense, then maybe it's worth it. That money is also worth it. But if not, then it's perfectly fine to have a very, non-agenda setting where you are just asking questions and trying to get an answer out of the participants. You're literally, pushing them towards the answer. So that's what I've realized now. Obviously, this is not my only point of touch point of happiness, so to speak. There are other things that I'll be doing, maybe taking my old dog for a walk, and when he engages in a sharing contest with a mongoose. There are a lot of mongoose in my neighborhood, and then that is something I enjoy. Uh, uh, Things like this, like when I see a shoot, so I have a lot of plants under my care, and when a shoot happens, when a new plant will show some life, then I'll be happy, and flowers bloom, then I'll be happy. But obviously, it is all momentary happiness. But then there's no such thing as perpetual sadness either, unless you're clinically depressed or having some mental health issues. So that is a clear bargain between what you want to be. Like, if you want to be happy, then you will be happy. If you want to be sad and pissed, and you will be pissed. At the end of the day, when you wake up, how do you wake up? And that is a question we need to answer. Do we wake up with a smile, or do we wake up thinking that, what the fuck, why did I die in my sleep or something? And maybe that is the difference between happiness and sadness. Obviously, I might be very mistaken, as I mostly am, but it's nice to have a rant about happiness instead of ranting about sadness for a change.